to look back at the last Forge FC contest.
Simply stunning stuff! And finally, their goal!
Here is Match and Review.
My word, what a rocket!
With Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network.
Hello, you Forge faithful. Final whistle has gone. Forge FC collecting all 3 points in what was, for all intents and purposes, a must-win match when you consider what's ahead for Forge and the battle they're in for a playoff spot and potentially top spot in the league. 3-0 the final. Forge over Vancouver FC on a Sunday in Langley, BC. This one had a lot going on, and we're going to cover all of it. We have a lot of goals. We have a hat trick, red cards, clean sheets, a very annoying person screaming throughout the match that could be heard through the TV broadcast. Trust me, we'll get to that as well. But right off the bat, Forge FC starting in their orange and Vancouver in their black. You know how much the colorblind in me, and I know I've heard from others, by the way, because I talk about it a lot and I get messages. There's a lack of white kits in this league, and so you do end up with a lot of color clashes. Fortunately, the orange and the black is perfect. I'm all for the orange against the black. Very easy to tell who's who in that one. By the way, we might as well just cover this now because we're at a point in the season where points are at a premium and the standings are very, very important. As such, Forge FC at the conclusion of this one with all 3 points find themselves back in third place. They have 35 points. They are in a virtual tie with Pacific FC, who's in second. Pacific, though, has played one less match. Forge now, though, 4 points out of top spot. They are trailing Cavalry, the team they will meet next. I guess kind of this. Is it still this weekend, or do we go next because it's Sunday? I don't know the rules, to be honest with you. But they're playing on Saturday in Hamilton. That's a big one. We have a lot to talk about in regards to that match as well. But as of right now, Forge in third place. Vancouver keeping their 8th place status in the league right now. Forge, though, they had 3 draws in a row. Draws are never great, especially this time of year. But glass half full. 4 matches now without a loss, unbeaten in 4. That is the longest current unbeaten streak in the CPL. It's funny, this league, I'm telling you, week to week, things change quickly. And Forge was in 5th. We were wondering, like, oh no, do they have to now stave off York, who's kind of right behind them? But right back in 3rd, longest unbeaten streak in the league right now. Certainly trending in the right direction and feeling the way they need to feel going into some very, very crucial matches coming up. Okay, let's go to the top here. Vancouver came out with a pair of faces very familiar to Forge fans. Diaz, the former Pacific striker, started at the 9 spot. He was joined up front by former Cavalry forward Kantav, and the impressive youngster Handal started on the bench. Veteran keeper Calum Irving in goal. David Chouanier not quite ready to return to action. Tristan Borges, though, he's back in the lineup as a sub to start after missing the previous match. We all know how important those 2 guys are to this club, especially as we ramp up for the postseason. I mean, you could go as far to say as those 4 CPL titles don't happen unless those 2 guys are part of this team. We can go back and forth on who was in, who was out in which game or whatever. But the fact is, these 2 guys they are cornerstones of this franchise, and the reason that this city, that Hamilton, has 4 CPL titles in it. So very important to get those 2 guys back in shape, in form, and ready to go as we head down the stretch. Taron Campbell started as the number 9, flanked by Betty Banga and Pacius. Becker, Sissoko, and Ashton Yodi plugged the midfield. Metusala getting the start at center back with Mandrakar James, Poku, and Rama handling those defensive flanks. All right. Anytime you see Pacius listed as a winger in these formations, he's probably not spending a ton of time out wide, playing a natural wing position. That's why Poku was selected as the left back in this contest, because Poku's able to play in a more advanced position as a wing back, so Pasillas could drift into the middle with his club in possession. And Forge essentially played with two strikers in this one, in Pasillas and Campbell, with Poku driving up the left side and filling in as a winger while Forge was in possession. It created this kind of four-man attack supported by Becker as the 10. At minimum, you had 5 forward players in an advanced attacking position, but you also have Sissoko as your workhorse box-to-box guy, making it 6. So Forge clearly looking to lean on Vancouver and to put pressure on that Vancouver back line. Now, you can leave when you play this way, you of course leave yourself open. It leaves you open defensively, especially on the counter. Forge, though, banking on their ability to control and to finish. And the harsh reality is the expansion side, Vancouver, they don't have the level of quality where you really have to be that worried, to be frank. Again, though, I would say this, all year long, I've talked about it ad nauseum. Forge seems to lack urgency in their matches against Vancouver, and it's happened all year. It's reared its ugly head in the early stages of the season, and it did also in this match. A slow start for Forge, again against Vancouver. Too slow, especially out wide. Listen, the ball, it needs to move quickly. Players need to be active off the ball. There need to be overlaps, especially between the fullbacks and the wingers, for Forge's tactics to be effective. It needs to move with speed, with pace, with decisiveness. And when that's not happening, when players are indecisive and lack urgency, it looks slow and sluggish, and you end up giving up a lot of possession. And when you're playing in these more advanced positions, again, it leaves you open to counters. You cannot, if you are going to decide we're going to play on the front foot, you have to play at a certain level of pace. You cannot let up, because it can be dangerous, and you end up putting a lot of pressure on your back line and putting them in uncomfortable situations. Having said that, Vancouver was ripe for the picking in this one. I mean, they were leaving huge gaps in their defensive midfield. Sissoko, one of the most criminally underrated players this league has seen, exploited that space a few times in the opening minutes with just that unmatched work rate off the ball that he has. And in the 18th minute, guess what? Sissoko found that gap. He had already found it a few times. This time, he delivers the ball into the area. It was cleared by Vancouver for a corner. The ensuing sequence after the corner, Rama with the ball in his right foot, lobbing a pass into the area just perfectly. Only Pasillas could connect with his head. That put Forge ahead 1-0, and they made it look very easy. Not a lot of resistance from Vancouver in that sequence, and that would be a trend here. Pasillas is 5th of the season, a guy that could really take this Forge attack up another gear, to another level, if he gets going more consistently. And of course, in his defense, the reality is this is such a deep roster, especially up front. Minutes are at a premium. He hasn't been playing as many minutes as he did last year, and it's because it's been so competitive, and it's because Terran Campbell is, again, contending for that league lead, that goal-scoring lead. The league's all-time leading goal scorer, again, in the thick of it, in terms of being the leader this year in goals. And so, minutes are at a premium. And, when you have all that talent at Bobby Smirniotis' disposal, this is just the reality. So you have to make the most of your minutes, and Pasillas, starting off right, gets his first of the match, and he would have a lot more to say before this one was done. And, that goal did ignite something. Forge was able to kind of find another gear after that opening goal. It's interesting when there's players can sense, they can pick up on these things without, it's one of these unspoken things. And maybe it was spoken to, but you can see it just by watching. That goal, that opening goal from Forge, just not a lot of resistance from Vancouver, as I said. And as a player, if you're Forge now, you can sense that. If they're not going to resist it gives you it's entered. I mean, not that they're not going to resist for the rest of the game. I just mean they could have played that goal a lot better, and they did. A little lackadaisical on that opening Forge goal. So as a Forge player, you sense that. I mean, there's blood in the water now, and there's a chance now to really have some fun and to start piling on some goals. And it did something. Just it triggered something in Forge. They looked much better after that opening goal, and they found an extra gear. In fact, so much so they forced a turnover on Vancouver's ensuing kickoff after the goal, and that led to a scoring opportunity. So the Sharks were smelling blood, and Forge. The one thing I'll say though, defensively, Forge could not have been happy with how easily Vancouver entered the attacking side of the pitch. Forge almost looked so focused on the attack at times that it allowed Vancouver to move the ball a little too easily into space. But the other day, Vancouver was not able to do anything with their opportunities. 10 minutes after Forge scored that opener, they added to their lead. The spoils of having both Campbell and Pacius on the field at the same time. Poku delivered an uncontested cross to Taron Campbell. Now keep this in mind. This has happened many times this year from Taron Campbell. Here's a guy in the thick of a scoring race. Again, the league leader in goals, tied for the lead this season in goals. He's got a trophy waiting for him if he can just get over, just add another goal. Maybe might see maybe a little more after that, but he's just trying to separate himself to get that to be the clear-cut goal leader. Instead, though, and he's done this before, Campbell, very selfless, team first. This is what Bobby wants from his players. Poku delivered an uncontested cross to Taron Campbell. He could have had a go at goal, but he saw that Pacius was in a better position. So instead of heading the ball toward goal, he headed it down to Pacius' feet. Pacius poked his second of the match, a brace for number 17, just 28 minutes in. And that was another example. Now, it was Campbell's first assist of the season, but there was a moment earlier this year where Campbell could have gotten to a loose ball for an open, but he saw that a teammate had a better opportunity. He acted as a decoy, allowing his teammate, I believe it was Pacius in that case as well, to finish things off. So, I mean, that's Taron Campbell for you, and that's Forge. 2-0 going into half. Forge in control. Surprisingly, though, I will say I double checked. I looked at a couple different sources because I thought it was wrong. But Vancouver, dead last in the league in average possession per match at around, I think it was like 35%. Forge, the league leaders in ball possession. Vancouver had the bulk of the possession in the first half. I mean, by a slim margin at 52%. The only thing I could attribute that to was, Forge, they didn't really have to hang on to the ball much. There was a lot of open space in that attacking third. So I wonder if it was just take what's given to you. If they're going to give you an opportunity to be more direct, I mean, to the point where you don't have to hang on to the ball and try and break a team down defensively, take your direct shots. And this is where possession can be misleading. It's just not always a representation of who the better club is. Forwards was just a little more straight ahead in this one because the space was there. And so they took it. And so as a result, they had 48% of the possession in the first half. And in total, Forge lost the possession battle to the best team in the league in terms of average possession per match, gave up possession to the club who has the least amount of possession per match. It's a funny sport. Sometimes we get too much into this. I mean, admittedly, I am a stats guy, but sometimes we get a little too much into it. In that first half, though, Vancouver had 5 attempts, not very threatening, 0 shots on target. Forge, though, 3 attempts, all 3 on target, 2 goals, perfectly efficient, exactly what you're looking for. Overall, a first half you could be happy with if you're Forge FC. When we have these like intimate, we'll call them intimate stadium settings, like we do in the CPL. The crowd's a little more together, a little more onto the field. The TV cameras and the mics are able to pick up things that you don't normally get to hear in a sports broadcast. Um, the entire match, though, you could crystal clearly hear one guy in the stands. To the point, I mean, he may as well have been doing commentary. That's how clear it was at times. He did not stop the entire match. Oh, he's one, when you go to a sporting event and there's that one guy, even if you go, sometimes it happens at a movie where it's even more annoying, but they're that one person, they're going to provide commentary the whole game because they think they're funny. But no one's, they think they're funny, but no one's laughing. They're going to shoot their shot. They're going to throw like a million different quips, and if one hits, that's all they want. They just want that one laugh from the crowd, and then it ends up egging them on more. In this one, though, and by the way, listen, I don't want to be mean. I don't know the person, but you kind of get a sense, right? Probably someone who has difficulty holding anyone's attention for longer than 3 seconds. And now they have this golden opportunity where they're at a sporting event. They can yell things out loud. No one's going to stop them. And also the people can't leave. So he has an audience that's like just like prisoners stuck there now. And this guy used all the time he could, one after another, little quips about the players, about Hamilton, about Forge. These. Let me tell you something. This is the person I dread when I'm in any public setting. The person that they want to be the main character, but especially when I'm just sitting. I don't like nonsense. Right? I like watching the game. I like focusing. I'm not a yeller. I mean, if there's a goal, I'll let out a yell, but I'm not yelling things at the ref or the players. I'm not that, and I'm not a fan of that guy. And I will say, in this one though, by the time Forge scored their third goal, not only, and we're going to get a little more into detail, but not only did it kind of put a nail in the coffin of this match and hand a hat trick to Pasillas, spoiler alert, he completely stopped yelling and talking after that goal. And for that alone, I mean, the hat trick was great, the win was great, but that goal was so much more important, just in the fact that it shut that guy up for the remainder of the match. And we are indebted to Rubens Pasillas because of that. And, it was Adam Jenkins and Oliver Platt providing commentary. It's like the dream team. I want to hear them call the match. Anyways, we have a lot to be grateful for. The win, Pasillas, and also single-handedly just keeping that one guy quiet so we could enjoy the match in peace. Now, I will say this. 1 minute into the second half, excuse me, Forge, they had been torturing Vancouver with their crosses all in that first half. Sure enough, 1 minute into the second half, picking up where they left off, Kwesi Poku makes a run down the left wing, delivers a cross. Taron Campbell gets fouled from behind, winning the penalty. Up stepped Pasillas for the hat trick, and he delivered his third of the match. Forge tripling their lead early in that final frame. That's the second hattie of his career, by the way. Fourth in Forge history. Here's a fact. There have been 7 hat tricks in CPL history. Forge has more than half of those hat tricks. So add another one into the record book, and now it is Pasillas. And I actually wrote in my notes, more importantly, the guy completely shut up after that third goal. So thank you so much, Rubens, for that goal. And the rain may have also played a role, by the way. It started to come down to the second half, which made the timing of that goal all the more critical. You do not want to be playing from behind when the weather starts turning and it just becomes more difficult. So 3-goal lead, rain, you're on the road, time to close this one out. Tristan Henry not called upon much in this one, but in Tristan Henry fashion, when he was called upon, again, it was only a couple times. He was unbelievable. Made difficult reaction saves. In this case, specifically, it was just before the 50-minute mark. just from a few yards out, punched it over the goal. And that's G. That's G. Timely, difficult saves, match in, match out, year in, year out. That's why he's the G GOAT, the greatest goalkeeper of all time in the CPL. 54th minute, Forge makes a sub. Kadeem Kane comes in. Sissoko comes out. What a 54 minutes for Sissoko. 54 does not seem like a lot, but if you watched Sissoko in this one, I mean, he works so hard in all phases of the pitch, and he did not waste a second of those 54 minutes. And with a 3-goal lead, Forge got the youngster Kane some important minutes. It's good for the player, and it's good for the club, who, remember, and you can look this up at campl.ca because they do track it, but all clubs need to meet that 2,000 minute threshold with under 21 players. And so you get Kane in, it's good for him, and it just adds to those minutes because Ford's still around 400 minutes short of hitting the mark with 4 matches remaining. Now, I'd expect to see quite a bit of Kwesi Poku over the stretch, maybe for this reason, and not just for the minutes. Fortunately for Forge, Poku can play, and that kind of seems like an understatement because this may have been his best match of his pro career. He was unbelievable. His deliveries from the flank in this one, and in fact, it could have been another. He had another delivery, which would have been an assist. Campbell by Irving in the process. Not for nothing, York. I was looking at the numbers during the match. York still needs to make up 1,000 U21 minutes over their final matches. So even if they do find a way into a playoff spot, right now they're in 6th, it could be moot because you need to hit that threshold in order to qualify for the playoffs. So that's a York problem, but I thought that was interesting. And when you're competing for a playoff spot too, there's urgency. You don't necessarily just want to give away minutes to players that maybe aren't, top 11 quality, but they might have no choice. There was a moment in the 65th minute or so. The Pasillas almost had his 4th goal of the game. A low cross found its way to Woobs, but it got deflected just enough, throwing off the timing, and ended up going through his legs as he stared down an open goal. Reminder, no one has ever scored 4 in a match in CPL history. Pasillas, though, was that close. 73rd minute, Noah Jensen, Tristan Borges enter the match. Becker and Taron Campbell come off. And a few minutes later, more changes, a glimpse. Actually, before the change, I had to make it's not often we get to see Kadeem Kane just rip one, playing a number 6 in a more defensive midfield role. He doesn't always get that opportunity. But up 3, all of a sudden the ball just bounces right in front of him, just outside the area, and he rattled the post from distance. Again, not often as a number 6 you get those opportunities, and he got all of it. A nice little kind of, like I said, it's like a little glimpse into, okay, the young guy, I mean, he can bring something here. And he's been good defensively all year. A couple of mistakes that all young players make, but to his credit, he's kept his head down and keeps working. And to the coaching staff's credit, when he has made a mistake here or there, he's been given a start the next match. So much faith in Kadeem Kane. And that 77th minute was just that, when I saw that rip, I was like, okay, there's even a little more than because I expected a quality defensive midfielder, but there's some offensive ability there for Kane as well. 82nd minute, more changes. Hoja Rapport and Malcolm Duncan in. Ashton Yodi off, handing the captain's armband, initially worn by Becker before he was subbed, now around the arm of Tristan Henry. Rama also taking a seat. 87th minute, one of the few, I guess the only low light in this one. Low light by Poku, at least the result. Again, this may have been his best game as a member of the club. I mean, he was dominant and he created so much, and he was directly responsible for at least 2 of the 3 goals. But he delivered a tackle, and it was clumsy. His boot made contact with the Vancouver player's ankle, and the referee was having none of it. A straight red card for Kwesi Poku. He couldn't believe it. Coaches couldn't believe it. Barring an appeal, Poku would not be available for Forge against Cavalry next week. And of course, this is secondary, maybe even third. Those U21 minutes, which are valuable at this stage of the year, will not be. I mean, those are, I don't know, maybe 90 minutes right there that you will not have next match. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. There were some chances late from Vancouver looking to spoil the clean sheet from Tristan Henry, the league leader in clean sheets, but they could not do it. Tristan Henry, still the leader. As I mentioned, ball possession at the final whistle, 52% in favor of Vancouver. Surprising, but as I explained, Forge took what was given to them, and that was a lot of space. It was a very north-south kind of game for Forge FC, and that's what was available, and they took it, and it worked. The result is what matters. 3-0 the final. Shot attempts 12-10 in favor of Forge. Shots on target, though, 7-1 in favor of Forge FC, and that again, it speaks to Forge. I mean, front foot. I feel like I've said that. It's getting repetitive, but maybe I don't know how other way to explain. It was just. Yeah, I mean, this was a straight ahead effort for Forge FC, and they delivered. And there could have been more. Taron Campbell got robbed from a couple of feet away from the touchline. It was, there was an attempt from Pacias that went through his legs after the deflection. That would have been his fourth of the match. This could have been a 4 or 5-0 game, but 3 is good enough. Forge will take it, and that sets up a crucial meeting on Saturday. Before we get to that, let's revisit those 3 keys to the match. Key number 1 was urgency. Again, for the most part, the club has lacked urgency in their matches against Vancouver this year, and it's led to way too many dropped points, 4 to be exact, 4 valuable points, as you can look at the table now and see how much those would have meant, but it is what it is, and they made up for it. The urgency, not really there in the early minutes of this one. But as soon as that first one went in, the urgency was there. And Forge was on the attack, ready to go. That is a giant check for key number 1. Key number 2, attack the third. Again, it's with the theme of urgency. And the reality was, Vancouver, they give up a lot of chances. They give up a lot of goals. This had to be an area where Forge felt, they didn't feel like they did enough to exploit the open areas against Ottawa last week and finding those gaping pockets that just they weren't able to exploit. So they had to find those areas in this one and exploit them. And boy, did they ever. Again, Sissoko played a huge role in this as well. And they attacked the third all right. They took exactly what Vancouver gave, and that's what you're looking for in your club. That's 2 checks that usually based on what we've seen this year, that's usually good enough for 1 point at minimum. But that third, this key, it was a little more all-encompassing. I really thought, looking ahead, Forge's matches against Cavalry, Pacific, Valor, Halifax, tough matches ahead, especially those next 2. Key number 3 was just launchpad. Treat this one like a final. Treat it like a playoff game. Treat it like it's do or die. Do what you can to get the result you need, because you need to use this one as a launch pad going into that home stretch. And they did it. 3 checks, 3 points. That's usually the way it goes. Speaking of next week, we are 6 days away. Not just 6 days away from Cavalry and Forge at Tim Hortons Field. We're also 6 days away from the Spark Summit, the 2nd annual Forge FC Spark Summit at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. The event connecting and inspiring professional women in the sports and entertainment industry. Spark Summit goes from 4 to 7 p.m. on Saturday. Following the panels, there will be an evening of networking and soccer on the club level. So not only do you get the panel, the networking, just a wonderful event. I mean, that itself would be worth it. But on top of that, you get an incredible match between Forge and Cavalry. You have the third place team against the first place team. And even forget the table, even. I mean, two rivals, probably the most intense rivalry in this league. All of those things wrapped into one event, one afternoon into the evening in Hamilton at Tim Hortons Field. The event will be hosted again by CBC and Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment host Jacqueline Dory, who got her start working for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The panel will include Megan Cheka, the co-founder and CEO of Stathletes, TSN anchor Lindsay Hamilton, Patrice Whiffen, who founded one of the largest events and multimedia firms in Toronto, specializing in sports and entertainment, Karen Volden, who's the VP of production for Uninterrupted Canada, a division of LeBron James' sports media company, Tiffany Lai, the senior manager of brand and creative design of the Canadian Football League, and Mary Lobson, founder and CEO of Reese Technologies, Inc., her company's trauma-informed online platform provides an outlet for reporting bullying, abuse, harassment, and discrimination, advocating for change across sectors and industries. Secure your spot by visiting forgefc.ca/Spark Summit. Looking ahead, we know they're playing Calvary this weekend. 8 days after that, they hit the road to Winnipeg, a tough one against Valor FC. 6 days after that, back home hosting Pacific FC, currently the second place team in the CPL. I know we're focused on first place because there's a trophy and an award there. But I forget that for a moment. I forget the trophy. The goal should be to finish top two. Right now, Forge is tied for second. They're giving up a match in hand, but they're playing Pacific. So that match in hand means nothing. Forge is in control of their own destiny. The only thing they cannot control is catching Cavalry. They can control finishing in that second spot. If you finish second, remember there's a new playoff format this year, the Page playoff format. 1 plays 2 to start the playoffs. The winner of that goes directly to the final. The loser of that match goes to the semifinal and then has another chance to get to the final. So if you finish in the top 2, you get 2 chances to go to the final, get in the top 2. Forge has a golden opportunity to do so with a home match against Cavalry, home match against Pacific, the team they're chasing. And then they finish the year. It won't be easy. It'll be a road match at Halifax, but who knows what Halifax's situation will be by then, whether they're in, they're out. Actually, right now they're in 5th. So if that match probably will likely be an important match for Halifax as well. But yeah, I mean, listen, the bottom line is these are crucial matches with huge playoff implications. And Forge got the result they wanted against Vancouver. They didn't look past Vancouver because that's always a danger when you have these big matches ahead. And now the focus can be on Cavalry. And if you can get 3 points against Cavalry, boy, does that set you up for your final 3 matches. And remember, whether you're attending the Spark Summit, even if you're not, you can still take in the match. I mean, the match is good. The match is good in itself. Spark Summit, that's just being spoiled. But the match, if that's all you're able to attend, grab your tickets, forgefc.ca/tickets, because we are ramping up. And that match this weekend is going to be playoff-like. You probably won't even be able to tell the difference between a regular season match and a playoff match on Saturday at Tim Hortons Field. Your final one last time, 3-0 Forge FC, the victors over Vancouver. Remember, we will get you set for that match against Cavalry all week long. By we, I mean myself and Mackenzie Barwell, who delivers you content daily. I'll be back with the match day preview to get you set for Cavalry. And there's just so much. It's an exciting time of year, and we here at the Forge Audio Network are excited to deliver it to you. Okay, we'll talk to you very, very soon.
This has been Match in Review with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. For the latest on all things Forge FC, subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.